Hello, everybody. I was going to try and do a sort of Obama leap onto the platform, but I thought, nah, that's going to go wrong. I'm going to end up flat on my face, so I'm not going to do that. Anyway, I bring positive news from north of the border, where UKIP are most decidedly alive and kicking. We're getting a lot of new people joining us, which is amazing. We're very pleased about that. So whatever anybody else is saying about UKIP, I'm telling you, we are doing well up there, and I'm sure you're doing well down here. In the summer, more than 1 million Scots voted for Brexit, but you'd hardly believe it if you listened to Miss Sturgeon. She seems to have other ideas. Her ideas of democracy are not as other women or as other men. She has very strange ideas about democracy. Anyway, 1 million Scots voted for Brexit, far more than anyone predicted. This was totally due to UKIP in Scotland. It was only UKIP boots on the ground that did the work, because the Tories, the Liberals, the Scottish Nationalists, everybody, apart from us, were Remainers. And we were the only people who were actually doing the opposition. Now it falls to UKIP in Scotland to expose the dismal record and failure of the SNP administration. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Scotland used to have the finest education system in the world. Well, now thanks to 10 years of Scottish nationalism in Scotland, solely responsible for the education system, 12 countries are doing better, including Slovenia, Australia, Estonia, Finland, good God, and England. Good Lord. That must be a misprint, sorry about that. The Scottish Government's Curriculum for Excellence, I advise you all to read it if you have trouble getting to sleep at night. It is absolutely unreadable, bureaucratic, managerial gobbledygook, or as we say in Scotland, havers. Scots children, regardless of means, used to get a top-class education, fine as you'd get at Eton or anywhere else, at both grammar schools and Scottish state schools. Sadly, no more. The SNP have destroyed that, and they have been solely in charge of education. Literacy, numeracy, sciences have all declined. It is totally shameful that there are less children from poor backgrounds getting a university education in Scotland, while Scotland has record numbers of EU students educated at Scottish taxpayers' expense. This is simply not on. As many of you will be aware, some of you have probably lost your jobs as a result of it. We're on the brink of a new industrial and technical revolution, where people fear redundancy through technology. Robots, computers, the interweave, or whatever it's called, all that sort of nonsense. I personally don't actually agree with this. Every technological innovation, from the steam train to the internet, has created new jobs which were previously inconceivable. But that requires that better educated Scots, and that is not possible while the SNP are destroying our education system. How does that create jobs in Scotland? UKIP believes in removing the sclerotic old Scottish establishment, which has engineered dependency on a nanny state. We believe, as Scots used to believe, in standing on our own 2 feet with a meritocratic education behind us. We want entrepreneurialism, a fine Scottish tradition, taught in schools, to end the stagnation of the Scottish feudal state, Scottish feudal socialist state. The new feudal ruling class are the town hall bureaucrats with their fat salaries and golden pensions. Thanks to the SNP, Scotland now has the highest income tax in the UK and a £15 billion deficit to boot. Sturgeonomics, that's what it is. Sturgeonomics, ladies and gentlemen. Business rates are unsustainable and positively punitive, killing high streets and businesses throughout the length and breadth of the land. We have boarded up shops in every high street in Scotland. The SNP are doing everything possible to discourage jobs, enterprise and investment. Why put uneconomic windmills, as Neil was earlier talking about, around the golf course, where people are whacking their mashie nibliks and their little white balls around the place, wanting to see beautiful Scottish countryside? Recently, they've done it to a very well-known American-Scottish investor who has secured a top job in Washington, and I believe he's a good friend of Nigel Farage. The SNP further destroy jobs by wanting to stay in the EU, leaving our fishing grounds accessible to EU industrial fleets. The EU is catching 59% of all fish in EU waters, and I think every Scottish fisherman, and probably most of the English ones, support UKIP, because the only people who want to do something about this. Brexit automatically returns our fishing grounds worth £6.3 billion to the economy and tens of thousands of jobs. Note I keep mentioning the word jobs, because that's what Scotland needs. UKIP will press the government to repeal the London Convention of 1964, which many of you may not know very much about, but it's something we need to worry about, and it should be activated quickly. It takes 2 years to remove. This allows access to UK waters by European fleets, and it was signed back in '64. UKIP will also push to ensure fish are exempt from the Great Repeal Bill to ensure a clean break. Fishing will be the acid test that we control of our own borders again, both territorial and maritime. It will also tell us if the Tories have sold out for a second time in a generation the fishing industry. We all remember Messrs Heath and Ripon giving our fishing grounds over to the European Union for entry. That will never be given by most of the people in Scotland, and especially the fishermen. The SNP, on the other hand, are more interested in independence from the UK and dependency on the EU than they are in jobs for Scots. Even if Scotland could stay in the EU, which it cannot, the EU would never tolerate Scotland's £15 billion deficit, higher than Greece. The EU imposed crippling austerity on Greece, and Scotland would fare no differently. Austerity max would be the fate for Scotland. What would then happen to Sturgeon's fight against austerity? More Sturgeonomics, that's what I'd say, more Sturgeonomics. Just as UKIP in Scotland was the only party arguing for Brexit, so UKIP is the only truly unionist party in Scotland fighting for Scottish jobs. Labour has let Scots down for generations and has been justifiably punished and is imploding. The Tories, they don't care, and they have a limited appeal in Scotland. UKIP has a great opportunity here, a great opportunity to pick up the old Labour vote and disheartened Tories. And as Paul Nuttall is doing quite here nearby in Stoke, that is something that we can look forward to. If Paul can win this, which I hope he will, and I'm got a good feeling he will do, that's going to help us up in Scotland take Labour seats. I want to see Scots remain in Scotland, build their businesses and employ their fellow Scots. And that will not happen with higher income tax and punitive business rates. UKIP in Scotland stands for jobs, jobs, jobs. That's the message we're going to take to Scotland. We are the party for that, and we will give it to them. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.